episode of the Industrial Packaging Podcast with me, your host, Nathan Dube, Digital Marketing Specialist at Industrial Packaging. On today's episode, we're going to be discussing the topic, why packaging should be considered an extension of your marketing department. Today's special guest is the marketing manager from Industrial Packaging, Mr. David Roberge. Dave, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Nate. I know we don't know each other very well, but I'm very excited to be here. Avid listener of your podcast. So,
well, fantastic. I'm glad to know that my boss is a fan of the show.
Thank you very much.
Totally. All right. Well, jumping into the questions, let's start with question number one. Can you tell us a bit about yourself and your role here at Industrial Packaging?
Sure. I'm going to give you a really long-winded short version of how I became an IP person.
Awesome.
So I was a real estate agent before I started at Industrial Packaging way back in 2013. And my friend was a temp staffing agency rep. And she said, David, this company has an opportunity for you to be a lead generator. So basically I was a cold caller to businesses to try to generate leads for our sales team.
Yep, been there.
Yeah, really fun. During my first 2 weeks, I made 400 calls to complete strangers and got 2 callbacks. So I found that there was something wrong, right?
Yep.
So I came up with the idea of creating a marketing program. I created a marketing program for the company. I built a new website. I introduced inbound marketing to our teams, which brings leads to us rather than us bringing ourselves to leads. Mm-hmm. And from there, I became the marketing manager shortly after. So we're going on 8 years with the company now, and I'm about to take on a new role as the director of growth for Industrial Packaging later in February. I'm going to combine our marketing and sales team, and I want us to all be focused on the same goals, and that's creating great customer experiences and helping our customers grow as well as our company grow. That's the work side of me. And then if you want to know me personally, I've got a 2-year-old dog, and he's a rescue from Puerto Rico. His name is Kai.
Awesome.
He's adorable. He's a handful, but he's my sidekick. But outside of hanging out with my pup, I love the outdoors. I love hiking, traveling, road trips, and adventures. And I can't forget my friends and my family too. They come first, right? So
always. Well, glad to hear that we have some similar ideals and interests. I like hiking as well.
Excellent.
Well, without further ado, let's move on to the next question, which is, how can people leverage packaging materials as marketing tools? And I ask this because I don't think all marketing departments do think of packaging materials front and center when they first think about key parts of their department.
It's pretty wild. I mean, if you're selling a consumer product and your packaging is your number one marketing tool. It's a way for your target market to find you and for you to easily stand out to them. Marketing is obsessed with understanding the customer. You can use shapes, colors, and textures, and the packaging as a whole to tell a story about your brand. You can use this packaging to influence how your product and your brand is perceived, from the words that you use to the typography that you choose. And capitalizing on your marketing team is key, I think. Packaging is the most important marketing tool you have, so you've got a lot of things to consider.
Awesome. Well, thank you for that. I appreciate that. And I totally agree. Having worked here in industrial packaging for the past 3 years and being in the industry, as a consumer, I think it's actually more of an important perspective now that I think of it. If I'm shopping in a store and I walk out with a product that I didn't intend on buying, it's generally because of the packaging, whether it was an eye-catching font or if it had a glossy or matte texture. The color combinations, as you wrote a great post about how color psychology ties into the design of packaging materials. And if you folks are interested, that'll be in the description below. Which, by the way, if you are enjoying this content, to all of our listeners, please hit that subscribe button. And thank you in advance.
It's like your subconscious kind of comes into play with when you're making purchasing decisions on the fly, I think, like that color, that whatever stands out to you specifically, and it's a subconscious, that's what brings in that's why the colors and the textures and the typography and the fonts and everything that you use to market your brand is so important.
Yeah, totally. I 100% agree. And it's interesting because the next question was, how can packaging materials drive more sales? But we've kind of already dovetailed into that. So to take that a step further, how can packaging engage consumers better? What do you think are some things that companies can do with packaging that maybe they currently aren't or could be doing better to better engage new prospects, whether it's in a retail setting, a department store, gas station, so on and so forth?
Oh man, there's so much stuff. I mean, with the world we're in now and the technologies that are available today, including AR, which is becoming a bigger thing. And I mean, right now it's teetering on the is it or is it not. Capitalize on using augmented reality, using simple QR codes to immerse the consumer in an experience. You can make your packaging an extension of your business where people feel like they're a part of it and they relate to it. If you can find ways to relate a customer to your product, you're going to generate more sales. In a study that was done really recently, 62 to 90% of consumers assess a product based on color alone.
Wow.
So pretty wild information. So think about who you're targeting. If you're targeting a more, masculine market, you're not going to go for a hot pink color, I think. It depends. Totally. It's all about knowing who your target market is to drive more sales.
Awesome. That's great. And I like that you brought up AR and VR. Those are interesting aspects that maybe a lot of people who are listening might not think about when they first think about their packaging and how to engage customers. But, that brings up the idea of one brand that's done that quite well is Pizza Hut. They were well known back in the 80s as always having a Pac-Man video game.
Literally still my favorite pizza. Sorry to cut you off, but love.
That's awesome. I mean, more love for them. So they got great pizza and they do packaging right.
Now I know what I need for dinner tonight. Yeah.
Oh, there you go. Hey, yeah, and if you got a smartphone, then you can do this. I don't know if the boxes are still out there. This campaign, I think, has been going on for about 4 to 6 months now. But some of their boxes have a code you can scan, which will allow you to open an app on your phone. And if you look through your phone down onto the top of the pizza box, you'll see there's a Pac-Man illustration, but the illustration comes to life when you're viewing it through the application that you can download on your phone for free.
That's so cool.
Yeah, so not only do you get to play Pac-Man, but that also unlocks different items that you can't get otherwise, whether it be coupons or family deals, things of that nature. So it's interesting when you think about these types of technologies because you don't tend to see analog packaging and digital technologies cross over, but we're at the very beginning of this as, talk of things like the metaverse and more deeper applications for virtual reality come to mind. These are ways in which, you can kind of blur the lines between traditional packaging and the future.
Yes. The future is now, folks.
Yeah, totally. All right. Well, moving on from there. Next question is, can you give us an example of a company that does packaging/marketing right? Like, is there a brand that you feel exemplifies how a company should be using packaging as a part of their marketing today?
Oh, man. Bringing a human aspect into your packaging is, I think, really, it makes you stand out differently. A brand that I think of off the top of my head is, something that somebody would find so trivial, but like my cherry tomatoes. I get a brand called Nature Sweet, and when you open the top of the lid of their packaging, there's a picture of somebody that helped package that product. It's kind of like a drawn-on caricature. Wow. And right beside that, sorry, I just had a Mack truck drive by. Right beside that is a little QR code, and it says "Meet Me" underneath it. So you use that QR code on your phone, and it brings you to a bio of that specific person So
Oh,
you
wow.
get to understand like who actually helped package this, and it brings that human element into what you're purchasing. And I just think it's so cool. Like, how awesome is that? You get to meet the people that package your product.
Yeah, that is definitely a unique one-on-one experience that I would say even 10 years ago, it's not something that anyone was doing. And I don't even know if
Yeah.
the tech at that time had been at the place where it needed to be. I mean, I know we had earlier smartphones around that time, but the way technology is changing and at the speed at which it changes nowadays, I mean, what you can do with the latest and newest tablets, smartphones, and eventually, we'll be seeing things like condensed virtual reality goggles and AR headsets. It's really quite inspiring to think about technology, but at the same time, you bring up the human element, and it's very important, I think, that we don't lose sight of humanity as these technological advances come up. And I like that you use that example that you did, because it's a perfect representation of where technology meets humanity. You're using the advanced technology to connect with someone who is directly responsible for putting food on your table in one respect or another.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
so they do it right. Nature Sweet's got it down. I think that's a very clever, and it's marketing. It's a clever marketing tool for them, and it brings for their internal employees too. It brings them gratitude, right? Like to see yourself across the nation is a caricature where you can have a bio put out there. That's fantastic.
Yeah, it's a really interesting story for not only brand awareness, but how they're bringing their people in and putting them front and center. A lot of corporations, they kind of hide behind a corporate logo or an identity, and the humanity of a business is lost. But I think companies that do what you're talking about is taking their people and giving them credit where it's due. That's just another way to integrate interactive experiences with packaging, and to do it in a way that supports not only your customers, but your employees.
Agreed.
Awesome. Great talk. I appreciate that, Dave.
Sure.
Coming up to the next question we have, what are some things to avoid with packaging materials when attempting to bring in new revenue?
Another great question. When you're using packaging as revenue boosters, think of it not as boosting revenue, but like less is more. I don't know if that came off the way I want it to, but I think when you have too much packaging that isn't necessary, reduce it unless it's adding to the experience of somebody opening it. Like, it always brings me back to the blister pack that you need scissors to open your scissors with. Like, you gotta stop it. Make that easy to open, right?
Yeah, so you're talking about two different items here that I think are interesting. One is sustainability, which we'll get to in a minute. And I think that's obviously important to most modern buyers as humanity has become more conscious of the impact we're having on the environment.
Right.
There is a massive demand for sustainable packaging. And then the flip side of that is you mentioned frustration at opening a blister pack, which, I've used blister packs or opened them, one for over-the-counter pharmaceutical drugs, which are usually pretty easy because there's a foil that I can peel off with relative ease. Now, there's blister packs that I've opened for tools like hammers, screwdrivers, things of the such from hardware stores, and there's literally no way to get into it without using a knife or a pair of scissors. So one, it's slightly dangerous, and two, it can get frustrating to the point where it makes you want to pull your hair out, which is...
use the hammer that's inside the packaging.
Use the hammer inside the packaging. But that's Rap Rage, and I think it's going to be a red thread, so to speak. This is probably something I'll touch on with future guests on the show as well, because everyone can relate to it. But it's funny, a lot of people don't know what it is until you explain
the red
it.
Thread, what?
Yeah, the red thread. I was at a marketing conference recently, and they said, when you're building content, try to have a red thread, something that runs through, that connects all of them. And I've been thinking about it as we do the podcast and move forward. And I think Rap Rage may very well be it. Sort of like that one question you ask everybody, like, have you ever experienced Rap Rage? And if so, can you tell us a bit about it? And,
Yes.
So it's an unfortunate experience. Larry David from Seinfeld fame went so far as to make his own YouTube video fictionally depicting him opening a piece of hard to open packaging that ultimately led to him just screaming and, throwing it away and leaving the scene. So, it's funny because it is mainstream and yet it's not, because when you throw that term out, rap rage, a lot of people don't know what you're talking about, but as soon as you explain it, they're like, oh, yep, definitely. I've been there. So I think that's one way, going back a couple questions, that companies can, engage their customers better. Make it easy to open your packaging.
Exactly. Make your package easy to open. I mean, if it's something a consumer is going to need to open and close again, make it resealable. Avoid making it hard to get to your product or to keep it fresh, right?
Absolutely.
If you have those simple things in your packaging, it's going to boost your revenue because people are interested in having those opportunities to have an easy open experience or an easy way to keep their product fresh long term without having to like roll it 18 times and put like a clip on it. If they don't have clips, then great, right? You have to use the YouTube ways of repackaging.
Yeah, totally. That brings to mind flexible pouches. If you look at snack packaging today, there are still companies that use the old foil bags for potato chips. And like you said, if you don't eat the whole thing, you got to roll it up. You got to get one of those clips. If it's too small of a clip, it'll pop off.
Always.
Whereas now we're seeing a shift from those older forms of bagging to flexible pouches, which are great. They package everything from energy drinks to granola to snack foods and all types of new applications as time goes on. And, you peel the top off and then there's a zipper on the inside. So what you don't finish, you just zip it shut, throw it in your cupboard and you're good to go.
Beautiful.
Which, by the way, if you guys who are listening are interested to learn more about flexible pouches, check the link in the description and we will have an expose on them. Also, while you're at it, remember to hit that subscribe button if you're enjoying our content.
Yes.
All right. Well, that's pretty much the meat of the episode, Dave, but we do have a couple questions left. The first being, where can people learn more about packaging materials and machinery?
Nate, it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I wonder where we should send them.
I wonder. I mean, I know about this company called Industrial Packaging, industrialpackaging.com, just saying. Shameless plug, no question about that. But
for sure, we had to.
We've created so much content, Nate, over the past few years that is helpful to startups, to larger businesses, to Fortune 100 companies. We've got a learning center, YouTube, podcasts, cartoons, a bi-weekly blog, and then great in-depth pages about flexible packaging machinery and products and the services that come along with it. But I mean, we could talk about us for a long time.
For sure.
But I mean, there's other places you can go. I mean, there's Packworld, great resources. ThomasNet has some really fun resources with their articles that they create.
Yep, very cool.
Packaging Digest. Yeah. Packaging Digest and the Dieliner, places that I regularly visit when I'm interested in learning something new as well.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Packaging Digest. They are probably the cream of the crop when it comes to the industry. So if you're interested, I would also second the notion on Packaging Digest.
Yes.
Great. Well, the final question is, where can people connect with you on the web?
I'm not on the web. I'm just kidding. You can find me on LinkedIn, linkedin.com/in/David Roberge, no spaces. I'd love to connect. Let's talk about packaging or thrill seeking and adventures or hiking or my dog. Happy to talk about it. Or find me on the website. Feel free to reach out. I'd love to chat.
Awesome. Well, you know what, Dave? I really appreciate your time and consideration. And I thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been fun.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that does it for another episode of the Industrial Packaging Podcast with me, your host, Nathan Dube, Digital Marketing Specialist at Industrial Packaging. I hope you enjoyed today's episode, and I hope you will tune in next time. But until then, I hope you have a great day, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Industrial Packaging Podcast.